So today we're looking at timeline therapy as an overview and a recap from the foundational practitioner level training. Firstly, what is timeline therapy? Well, it's emotional and belief transformation. It's a collection of techniques and processes that is designed to help people release negative emotions, overcome limiting beliefs, and create positive change. When we can find the learning from an event, emotional retention serves absolutely no purpose. In a quaint town, nestled between rolling hills, there lived a person named Ethan. From the earliest moments of his life, fear was his constant companion. The idea of doing anything new sent shivers down his spine, and he had become well acquainted with the comforting embrace of his comfort zone. It was a lonely existence. Ethan's world remained small, safe, and predictable. Ethan had a dear friend named Maya, who was his absolute polar opposite. Maya was adventurous, spirited, and never hesitated to embrace new experiences. Seeing her friend Ethan trapped within the confines of his fears, she decided to take matters into her own hands. One morning, Maya surprised Ethan with an invitation to a luxurious spa retreat hidden deep within the lush forest outside town. Ethan's heart raced with anxiety. He'd never had a spa day before, and yet he couldn't bear to disappoint his friend, so he reluctantly agreed to go. Upon arriving at the spa, Ethan was greeted by soothing scents and the sound of trickling water. He was led to a serene room with dimmed lights, soft music, and a plush massage table at its center. Ethan hesitated, unsure what to expect, but he trusted Maya and her judgment and allowed himself to be draped in a cozy robe. As the skilled hands of the masseurs worked their magic, Ethan's tense muscles began to melt away. He closed his eyes and felt the serenity of the moment wash over him. It was right then that Maya leaned in from her bed next to his and whispered, "Let's play a little mind game, Ethan. Can you remember when you first felt that fear of doing something new?" Without thinking, Ethan replied, 2.5 years old, and then said, "That's weird." Suddenly, it was as though a portal had opened in his mind. He was transported back to that moment in time, sitting on a small, unfamiliar tricycle with training wheels, his parents encouraging him to pedal forward, but his little heart racing with terror. Ethan observed the scene as if he were an invisible spectator. He watched his younger self, his chubby cheeks flushed with anxiety, struggling to muster the courage to move that tricycle. His parents, now visible with astonishing clarity, were smiling warmly and radiating love and support. Hovering above the memory, Ethan gained a new perspective. He saw himself fall off the tricycle. He saw himself cry. He saw his parents rush towards him, his mother lift and smother him with love, and he saw himself feeling so much better. He then saw himself get back on the tricycle with a smile on his face and laugh as he pushed those pedals. He began to realize that the fear he had carried for so long had blinded him to the love and encouragement that had always surrounded him. The tricycle incident was a catalyst for personal growth, the first step in a long journey of self-discovery. As the masseurs continued to relax Ethan's muscles, he felt a sense of relief and gratitude wash over his body and his mind. The memory was no longer haunting, but a valuable lesson from his past. He realized that even in the most daunting moments in life, he had never been alone and he had always been loved and supported. With this newfound insight, Ethan understood that by revisiting this pivotal event, he had unearthed hidden resources within himself. The fear that had held him captive for so many years began to dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning sense of confidence and self-belief. When the massage ended, Ethan felt like a different person. His shoulders were no longer burdened by the weight of fear, and the life inside him seemed full of possibilities. His chest felt different, open. His behavior changed as he embraced new experiences, and each day felt like an adventure waiting to unfold. Ethan's transformation became an inspiration to those around him, proving that sometimes all it takes is a little perspective. So let's talk about the purpose of timeline therapy. What is it all about? It's all about releasing negative emotions or seeing them from a different perspective so that we can integrate them as a smaller aspect of the greater whole. And the same for limiting decisions. We can eliminate phobia and other emotional blockages. We can improve communication skills and enhance relationships. We can set and achieve compelling life goals. We can create lasting positive change in behavior and thought patterns. And we can create an effective relationship with time. Remember, time is one of the 4 consistent mind blocks or barriers that every human has. What do we want to pay attention to when we're working with timeline therapy? The most important, as always, and with all NLP techniques, is to build rapport with the other person. We want to frame the client, to suspend their disbelief, to allow them to activate their imagination. Their timeline, which gives us insight to their relationship with time. Are they in time, where they are fully present, the past is behind them and the future is in front of them? Or are they through time, whereby all of their time lies in front of their eyes, making it obviously more challenging to let go of the past? Once we understand how a person stores time, it allows us to bear in mind the different behavioral propensities. Make sure that you learn the root cause script by heart, because we use this root cause script with all techniques except the future focused ones, goal setting and anxiety. Pay attention to breathing and body language. Often an emotional release is accompanied by quite a significant change in breathing pattern. Also pay attention to verbal body reference language. For example, my shoulders feel tight. Oh, it's like a weight has been lifted. Be aware that only some people actually see events, and we want to be flexible with our language to allow people to elicit those events auditorily or kinesthetically or through smell or taste. Also, we want to learn how to identify what I call the coach pleaser clients, the people that want to be good clients who say they have made a release when there has been no release. With your sensory acuity, you're going to be able to notice the body language, the physical body language, and the breathing pattern to support you in identifying whether or not there has been a significant release. Also, the testing and future pacing will allow you to identify this. I also want you to really consider the gestalt. Often we have what you might call safety emotions. What I mean by that is it's much safer to feel anger, for example, than it is to feel shame. So often anger may cover some of the more uncomfortable emotions. Some people present anger when they're actually feeling loss or sadness. Some people present anger when they're feeling scared. Just be aware, often emotions lump together in a gestalt, and we want to be able to unpick that ball of emotions. We want to prepare for the techniques, and these are the things that you want to keep in mind. Learnings must be positive, they must be for the client, and they must be future. So if somebody creates a learning which is, well, they won't do that again, this is unhelpful because they've learned nothing for themselves. Learn the different types of reframe scripts by heart, because you never know when you might want to use one of them in the middle of a technique. Also be aware what to do if the emotion doesn't release. Be aware when you want to go back to an earlier emotion. Also be aware that you may actually drop a client into an SEE, a significant emotional event. And if you do, that may be quite traumatic for the client. So you want to know what to do in those instances. When you prepare for a limiting decision release, you also want to be aware where the client wants to get to. As with every single NLP or timeline therapy technique, the most important aspects are knowing where we are now and knowing where we want to get to. Be aware that if you want to deliver a fast phobia model, you want to set that up with logical levels of therapy to loosen the model of the world. You may also want to use anchoring with the fast phobia model. If you're going to insert a goal into the timeline in the future, you want to prepare fully with the language question set that allows the client to clarify and frame the goal. You want to learn how to be able to deliver the anxiety model on the fly. Always remember to break state when people come out of trance. This also allows you to test and future pace more effectively. And know your submodalities well when you engage in timeline therapy. Let's have a look at the main rules. Every response when you are working with a client in timeline therapy is good or another positive word. The mind responds much more effectively when you are accepting and then you redirect the client in a different direction, in the one that you want them to follow. Never show the script to the client. Clients who are highly conscious will be then thinking about the different positions and whether or not they are accurate and whether they're in the right place. Whereas actually, if you just ask the client to follow your direction, you will get a much better result. I highly recommend you use the script, follow the script until you learn it by heart. The reason is that it contains several embedded commands and it is designed to direct the mind effectively. And the last thing that's really important, and this is about efficiency and effectiveness, always aim to release and integrate the highest level presenting problem. So when a client presents anything, always ask upward direction questions that will allow you to access the highest level presenting problem. So let's look at this collection of techniques. So the first technique is timeline elicitation, identifying how the client stores time. Next is negative emotions number 1 script. This is used for all new clients and any clients that you've been working with for some time who have experienced a significant emotion event. After you have completed a full round of negative emotion release with script number 1, you move on to script number 2. The client knows the process by this point. You also have experience of how a client reacts emotionally, and this enables you to speed up the process and to guide the client more effectively. Limiting decision release is the next technique. This is where we identify a belief, it might be a decision, and we then identify the desired decision in order to release or relax the framework, the belief framework the client is currently using. Then we look at parts integration, and with this we want to be aware that we have 3 different types of parts: towards, when we have 2 decisions, both of which look appealing or feel appealing, and yet we can't quite decide. The second one is the towards, away. This is normally a limiting belief release. And the third one, which is away, is normally a hidden emotion, or it may not be hidden, an emotion and a limiting belief release. So the parts integration model, where we chunk up both parts, maybe even 3, whereby we elevate them to the highest learning or purpose, and those purposes are all the same. So that allows the client to then choose the behavior that is most productive and helpful for them. Next, we have the anxiety model. This is the fastest one to use. We can use it on the fly, before somebody does a quick presentation, before somebody has an interview, before somebody has a meeting or a difficult conversation. And it helps them to see the outcome as they want it. Then we have the fast phobia model. This helps people to release extreme fear. It also can be used to change the representation on a really unpleasant experience the client has had. Next, we have goal setting, where we put a compelling goal in the future timeline, and then we work backwards to create the steps. We may also choose to change a timeline direction or create a trigger switch, whereby the direction changes based on context. For those of you that work with me, you know that I am less interested in changing timeline direction. And the reason is that when we complete a full emotional release, any challenges that may arise from timeline direction tend to resolve. So often, there is no purpose. And one of the main challenges that people have in their mind is questioning how on earth do you use this in a business environment? And they feel strange and uncomfortable about it when they probably don't realize they can use it using metaphor and also using submodality techniques. So we can adapt the timeline therapy technique to reframe people conversationally. And by combining submodality shifts with the timeline therapy framework, we can support people in finding learnings and building their confidence. So this is a recap and an overview of timeline therapy at the practitioner level. I hope you have found it useful.